Hello and welcome everybody to Bibliotherapeutic Book Club. Tonight we have a treat. Tonight we have somebody that I call the color queen because she is so into colors. She's also the tapping queen, which is emotional freedom technique. And her name is Khadine Aaharon. She's there. Khadine is going to share with us her very deep insights into her favorite childhood poem, which is The Owl and the Pussycat by Edward Lear. But before I hand over to the wonderful Khadine, I just want to remind everybody of what bibliotherapy is. So bibliotherapy is the use of the written word to help solve a problem. Now, many people say that they get lost in a book. I prefer you to find yourself in a book because books are so full of rich knowledge and help for all of us. Now, bibliotherapy has a methodology, and there's some different models around, but the model that I use for bibliotherapy is a simple 4-step model that covers identification, insight, catharsis, and universalisation. So I'll quickly go through them before I hand over to Khadine. And I want you to be thinking about how this poem and you fits into what Khadine is about to read. So identification. Who do you identify with in this written word? So it could be a book, it could be a poem, it could be a song, it could be a pamphlet. Tonight we're lucky to have the most amazing and old poem. I think, Khadine, correct me if I'm wrong, but is the poem written in around about 1840?
1872.
1872. Okay, so I'm a little bit older than all of you. So obviously I made the poem a bit older as well. So, okay.
100 years older than me. I'm born in 1971, so it's 100 years older than me, shy of a year.
Wow. So that makes it even more special. So the second step in, hey, Melanie Fury, I see you there. Yep. And Melanie, I told Khadine that you're crook so that you'll be on the black screen. The second step in the methodology of bibliotherapy is catharsis. Now, when we read things and we identify with characters, it allows us to express our own emotions as we're reading the emotions of the characters in the book, the poem, the song, whatever the written word is. It becomes cathartic as well for us. Then there's insight. We learn a new perspective from what the characters have gone through. We're able to test out at a safe distance, an objective distance, we're able to test out what this character has just gone through. So that gives us insight into ourselves and how we might handle things. And then the final step is universalisation. And it is extremely comfortable to know that there are other people in the world that are going through similar issues, problems, developments to what we've gone through. It could be in different cultures, it could be in different languages, it could be a different socioeconomic bracket or age bracket, but other people have gone through it and it brings us all together. It's the thread that runs through humanity and draws us all together. Now, in terms of universalisation for this poem, I'm going to put my hand up straight away and say that I always make up words, particularly swear words. I'm very good at making up swear words, but I make up words, and Khadine is going to share with you tonight a word that was made up to go into this poem, because I know she's done some research into it and decided where it came from. So Khadine, I'm now handing over to you. Read to us your poem and tell us why it's your favorite poem.
All right. I actually thought I'd share my story about the poem and then I'll read the poem if that works.
That's fine. That's actually a great way to do it.
Great. So I was introduced to The Owl and the Pussycat. It's my favorite book from my childhood when I was in first class. So I was about 6 years old and I was just fascinated by it. When I was in second class, I moved schools and I was still fascinated by it, but I was really unwell in second class. I had tonsillitis and I spent probably half the year off school. And because I spent so much time away from school, they kind of dumbed me down in classes. They put me in classes that didn't meet my knowledge. So they put me in a reading class, and I was the only one who could tell the time, and I was the only one reading novels at that stage, but they still put me there. So I was reading The Owl and the Pussycat every single week because there was nothing else in that reading class for me. And so they saw how passionate I was about it. So they got me to record it in those old cassettes so that they could keep the recording in the library, which I thought was really cool at that time.
Mm.
Uh, but also at that time, my mum's mental health really declined. My mum had schizophrenia when she was alive. And my times with her were very short. And so she had started to become really paranoid and was convinced that someone was going to kidnap me. And she obviously stopped paying the rent because we were evicted from our housing commission place. And while my grandfather was able to salvage some of our belongings, my Owl and the Pussycat book was not one of them. And so
Oh,
I missed having that book. Years later, when I was 30, I ended up tracking down my dad's family for the first time. I'd never met him and certainly never met them, but I tracked them down and I had mentioned to my aunt that I really loved that book. And she must have mentioned it to one of my cousins, Jai, because the first time I met them all, Jai turned up. She had gone through all the op shops in up on the coast to find me a copy of The Owl and the Pussycat, which
mm.
she did. She found a copy and she brought it to me. So the first time I met her, she brought me this magical copy of The Owl and the Pussycat that I really treasure. If I'd thought about it, I would have grabbed it and so I could show it to you tonight. But that's kind of my journey with it. And I remember I shared it with another friend, Paul, who used to be a wedding celebrant. And he just loved it so much. He taught his sons the poem in the car. They'd recite it in the car all together. So it was a really connecting poem for them all to share. And he was wanting to share it in one of the weddings that he what do you call it when you're a celebrant? Facilitated, ran,
Officiated.
officiated. That's the word. Thank you, Anne-Marie. And so it's had a bit of a ripple effect, my love of The Owl and the Pussycat. I was wanting to share with you, but it won't let me in the chat box, but I will put my email down in case you want a copy. But I made some beautiful copies of The Owl and the Pussycat so that you could have your own copy to print off and frame if you want. So I'm going to bring up one of those copies so that I can read it out. And I know some of you, some of us are better off with reading than just hearing. So that way we can cater for both. Does that sound cool?
That sounds wonderful. Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is the one. All right. Okay. Let's see. Let's make this big over. Can everyone see that?
Yes. Yep.
All right. The Owl and the Pussycat by Edward Lear, 1872. The Owl and the Pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a 5-pound note. The owl looked up into the stars above and sang with a small guitar. Oh pussy, my love, what a beautiful pussy you are, you are, you are. What a beautiful pussy you are. Pussy said to the owl, you elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be married, too long we have tarried, but what shall we do for a ring? They sailed away for a year and a day to the land where the bong tree grows. And there in the wood a piggy-wig stood, with a ring at the end of his nose, his nose, with a ring at the end of his nose. Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring? Said the piggy, I will. So they took it away and were married next day by the turkey who lives on the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon. And hand in hand, by the light of on the edge of the sand, they danced by the light of the moon, the moon, the moon. They danced by the light of the moon. So that's the Owl and the Pussycat poem. If you'd like a copy of that visual, I've also got a this is a landscape, and I've also got like the upwards version. Having trouble with my words today. Uh, you're welcome to email me, and I'm happy to send it to you for you to print off.
Do you want to just drop your email address into the chat so people have got that? And
Yes,
I think I may have dropped it into the event on LinkedIn for those who are on LinkedIn. Oh, Johnny's here too. Hello, Johnny.
Hello. I'm just finishing with a client and then I couldn't get in. It wouldn't let me in.
no.
Finally got in. It's good.
So I've put that little visual into the chat box for you. If you email me and you want a copy, I'll send you the links to be able to download that version.
Yeah.
And then I have this version as well, and I'll give you both.
Yes.
My aim is to actually start making products with the Owl and the Pussycat on because I love it so much.
I like the song of the poem too. Ah, this is interesting. So Melody's just dropped in that she likes the song of it. And that's interesting because, and Khadine, you can tell me to keep my mouth shut here, but I do know with Edward Lear that he was also a musician and he liked to put poetry to music. I wasn't aware that there were any versions of his song to music. So thank you for that, Melody. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to that. I never knew. Can't wait to listen to that.
Yeah.
My grandma used to sing it to me, Khadine.
Did she? Oh, that's special. That's special. How did that make you feel as a child, her singing that to you?
I loved that song. I didn't know it was a poem. I just always knew it as a song. Yeah.
Oh, how lovely. Does anyone else have any memories of the Owl and the Pussycat?
Childhood books that I had. I've no idea. I don't think I'd ever be able to find it because I don't think my memory is strong enough about what it looked like. But yeah, I remember some of the illustrations inside were very cute. And so, yeah, I loved it. I loved it because the boat was beautiful.
The boat was beautiful, yeah.
The boat was really beautiful.
Yeah, I had a
I wanted a boat like that when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to sail away on that boat when I was a kid
Probably.
and go on adventures. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Marie.
yeah, I had a poetry book that had lots of different poems in it, but it was beautifully illustrated, and that was one of the ones that was in it. And I do still have the book somewhere. I'm just looking at scanning my bookcase, and I just can't spot it, but yeah, it's not too far away.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Does anyone else have any memories of the Owl and the Pussycat? It amazes me how many people haven't even heard of the Owl and the Pussycat.
Well, let's test that. Who hasn't heard of the Owl and the Pussycat? Tanya? Okay, so Tanya Tuttle. Jade Pinto, have you heard of the Owl and the Pussycat? Actually, I know that she has, so I can answer for her.
It's interesting that my youngest daughter has got a young baby, and I'm sure I introduced her to nursery rhymes and stuff, but she doesn't know them. Hey, It's really
Wow.
interesting. I think because she didn't have other younger ones, where the older ones, they had it as little, and
Mm.
then they had, when the younger brothers and sisters got introduced to them as well. But
Yeah.
it's interesting.
So that's a memory thing. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So my husband is the same. Like his family were a great family, but he doesn't remember any nursery rhymes or early childhood stories, which I just find, really? Your mother never read to you? But of course she did. He just doesn't
Yeah,
remember it.
remember. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So if you could identify with either the owl or the pussycat, which one would you be and why?
Great question. I'd be the owl so I could fly away if, the relationship got sour. I'd like it off.
That's a really good point,
I
Megan.
might be the pussycat, and hold the power.
The owl or the pussycat, yeah. Yeah. Love that. Anyone else? Would you be the owl or the pussycat? Which one do you relate to the most?
Everybody's too shy.
I'm just rereading it to see. I'm not sure.
That's okay.
Or it could be the pig or the turkey.
That's true. The pig who had the ring and the turkey that was the marriage celebrant.
Yeah, yeah. Or it could also be an inanimate object. So it could be the boat or the sea
Yeah.
or the runcible spoon or the dancing. Maybe I'd be the dancing, actually. I'd like that. Yeah.
You'd be the
Yes.
dancing. You love your dancing. Dancing by the light of the moon.
Oh,
What
on
does
the,
that mean for you? Dancing by the light of the moon.
on the beach with a bonfire in the background, no
Mm.
shoes on,
Mm-hmm.
perfect temperature. I'm moving there tomorrow.
Beautiful.
I mean, I'm not
Sound wonderful.
Queensland or other places where they have crocodiles.
Yeah, that's why I'd have to move there tomorrow.
But that's what I always think. I would love to dance on the beach at night, by the light of the moon. But yeah, I'm really glad until now we don't have crocodiles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving south, but
Gobbled up by a crocodile.
See, and this is interesting that we've picked immediately on climate change. Yeah. Whereas when we were kids, climate change probably would not have entered our minds when reading this poem. Yeah, so that's interesting. Sorry, Khadine.
I had not even thought about climate change.
I think about climate change all the time
So do I. Yeah.
because it's been so wet here. We have had 2 years rain in a couple of months and it's been so wet. And I have a big slushy, could be a rice paddy, that used to be my front footpath.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I think about climate change every day.
So I'm curious, who can relate to wanting to escape from the world in
Yeah.
some way like Down the Pussycat do?
Especially this week.
Hmm.
I know as a child, I certainly wanted to escape. I didn't like my reality, and some way I got lost in this poem. It allowed me to escape into another fantasy land of the owl and the pussycat. And I always related to animals much more than humans even then. And so to me, the whole escape part of being on this boat, it was really meaningful to me. Yeah, yeah. I can also see how it can reflect our relationships. Does anyone else have any thoughts about how this poem reflects on how we do relationships?
I actually love it for this reason. The fact that we have got an owl and a cat, and normally a cat would eat the owl, right? Because cats are predators, right? So we've got
Owls are predators too.
yes, correct. So we've got two predators in different cloaks. But the cat would normally eat the owl. And here they are joining a union, and they're happily sailing in a boat. So I couldn't help but think of the life of Pi. Yes, yes. So my mind instantly went to the meaning of that book, and how clever was Edward Lear in the 1800s to come up with this concept of an inter-animalistic wedding, which we can then transfer to interracial marriages. And two of my children are married to people from different cultures that in my time was not acceptable. So it's really interesting to me to reflect on this in the 1800s, like go the Victorians.
Yeah, or even just that opposites can attract.
Yes.
And yet we need to still navigate our relationships, and a relationship can be like we're on a boat. Like the boat can represent the relationship and being on the sea, which is sometimes calm and sometimes really rocky, but needing to navigate that really well together.
Yeah.
Funny that you say that, because of the relationships that we counsel, I often find that that's a bit of a problem if you've got two apex predators together in the relationship.
Yes.
I kind of got a bit of a different feel.
Ah.
I kind of feel it's a bit of a false relationship. You got the owl saying, "Oh, Pussy, you're beautiful. You are, image outside," and you got the owl going, "Oh, you elegant fool. There's no, you're a wonderful person." You know, it's a little bit reminds me of social media, the front that everyone puts out there, and then the reality of what's happening behind the scenes. But I feel I don't know. Looks like one person's very dominant in the relationship.
Ah, that's a very interesting insight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting perspective.
And Tanya, one of my personal trigger is when my husband tells me I'm beautiful. Like it pushes my trigger like you would not.
Me too.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
But it looks like the owl is always telling the pussycat how beautiful, and the pussy's like, "Oh, you elegant," like the pussy has all the power in the relationship. It's like the owl's almost worshipping the pussycat in not such big terms.
Yeah. So I wonder if the owl could be Donald Trump worshipping pussy. Sorry, I had to say it.
Pussy.
No, it's actually the world telling Donald Trump how beautiful he is and how wonderful he is, and him just like, "Oh yeah, that's what it is."
That would never happen. He can't. He's not.
Sorry, I don't mean the world. I mean his sycophants.
All right, yes, because
not the world.
I'm having had a little hissy fit because the Canadians told him to shut up.
Well, we can do that in relationships, can't we?
For that.
We can do that in relationships too when we don't have good argumentative type of styles.
Yeah, communication styles. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Well, Khadine, you can tell me to be quiet because I always do this. I take over.
Yeah.
It's interesting that these two views that appear to be opposing are actually not opposing. We're all agreeing with what Tanya's saying and then with what the rest of us have seen as well. Yeah, this is a very powerful poem.
I've got a different take on it, I guess, because I'm thinking about it with my small person brain. Like this whole Trump and pussy is all very interesting and quite the tangent. But when I was a small person, I was quite attached to food, and food was like a high motivator for me. And so for me, like growing up working class, obviously I knew mince intimately, but quince was just like the most exotic thing that I could imagine in my whole life. And I didn't even know what the hell a quince was. It could have been anything. It could have been food. It could have been anything. I wouldn't have had a clue. If a quince fell down and hit me on the head, I wouldn't have known what the heck it was. So to me, that was like the most exotic thing that you could ever have was quince, whatever the heck that was. And I knew that when I grew up, I wanted to have quince and I wanted to have things that I'd never heard of. I
Wow.
wanted to have all these novel, all the fancy things, even things like 100% orange juice, which we never had, or actual milk that wasn't home brand, skim milk, watered down to save money because we had too many kids in the family. Like I was like all about the ready for the exotic food. That's what I was waiting for. So that was my relationship to the poem. Not, I didn't identify with the
Love
characters.
it.
It was more
Yeah.
the fancy food. Bring it on.
Fancy food.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, I
Love it.
love that.
Beautiful.
I was
Beautiful.
fascinated by the runcible spoon, and I remember a long time ago looking it up and looking it up and looking it up, trying to work out what a runcible spoon was.
What is it?
I don't know.
Well, there is some debate about that.
Well, there's debate about the whole poem. That's the thing.
But the meaning of runcible spoon, I was looking that up. And so some people just say it was fanciful and meant nothing, and he just made it up. But some other commentary I was reading was that he had a friend that he called Runcie, and Runcie believed that children should learn to feed themselves very young. So he invented a spoon that would make it easy for them to feed themselves. And then that spoon went on to become a splade.
Spork.
No, this one's got a blade on one side.
Ah.
Fork doesn't have the blade. So, what I was reading today was that the runcible spoon was something similar to a splade because it's got the knife on one side. And so it can be called a runcible spoon or a splade. And I eat with these all the time.
Andy.
It's my favorite bit of cutlery.
I didn't find that, but I think it's fascinating because it speaks to baby-led weaning, because baby-led weaning, you should get babies to feed themselves really early.
Yeah.
Baby-led weaning. I've never heard of that. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
It's all the rage now, Megan. You just give them food and they just eat it, but you know the difference between gagging and choking.
Okay. That sounds like the story of my parenting journey. You just supply food and they eat it.
But you don't mush it up in a millie or anything. Like when I had my first baby, somebody told me I had to buy a millie so I could mush it all up. And yeah, I thought it was disgusting, so I didn't really do a huge amount of it.
So, isn't it interesting that culture changes, like child rearing culture changes, but the poem doesn't? The poem has stood the test of time.
Yes,
And
totally.
like, Khadine, I am so interested that Melody and Tanya have come forward with these different ideas that, well, I hadn't thought of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love this.
It's interesting how we all just different parts of any story will just touch us in different ways and will make different meaning from that. So I'm curious to ask you all that when reading this poem, did it elicit any sort of emotion or did you attach any sort of emotion to the poem at all?
I thought that it had like a calming effect because of the rhythm of it that I found that to be, yeah, it just sort of rolled along nicely. So yeah.
So calming, lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Anyone else? Any emotions that you connect to the poem? Yes, Melody.
Me, it was a sense of longing for a place where I would fit, which was going to be a fancy place, which I'm so not fancy, so I'm not sure. But it was like a longing for being somewhere other than where I was and somewhere that I could belong and that I would feel like everything made sense.
Yeah, I can
And
totally
all the
relate.
good things were there waiting for me. And one day maybe I would find that magical place.
Yes, yes. I can totally relate to that as a child. I think that's one of the things that really drew me into this poem is those possibilities.
So, Khadine, I just, while we are talking before, I went and actually Googled the book because I just assumed it was a poem. And seeing the books and the pictures is very different to listening to the poem being spoken.
Ah,
So, whereas I looked for the book. I actually looked for what a bong tree was, and then it brought me to the book. So yeah, I think if I'd read that first, I would probably may not have picked up on um, thinking it was the relationship was a little bit false
yeah,
because the
yeah.
visuals were so beautiful.
Ah, oh, how lovely. And any emotions for you connected to that poem now?
I actually, with the pictures, I actually felt because seeing the animals and the graphics, I felt a very warming feeling to it. Nothing sort of, yeah, just a bit warm. Made me feel nice, warm and fuzzy.
Oh, well, that's lovely, isn't it?
Mm.
And for
Well,
those who don't know, Tanya is actually a wildlife carer.
oh,
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking about how I've got a dog and an owl relationship at my place.
oh,
Yeah.
how
So yeah,
lovely.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. So yeah. So the two different creatures together, I get.
Well, the other day I was walking at Parramatta Lake and I was walking back from the walk, and for about 300 meters, a bush turkey decided to join me for the whole walk, either walking beside me or just in front of me. And then we got
Yeah.
to the road and it went, boop, 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 goodbye. And then it went off its own little way. So it went with
Yeah.
me on my little journey. Oh, that's so adorable. Oh,
Is that a maremma that you've got? Wow.
Yeah. I've got two of them.
With what sort of owl was that?
Frog mouth.
Oh, frog mouth. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say a morepork, but that's the wrong place. That's Norfolk Island.
oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's so precious.
Mm.
And it was Norfolk Island where Khadine and I first had the conversation about the owl and the pussycat.
Mm.
Yeah. And Khadine, my emotion elicited from this is joy and a spirit of adventure. And that goes back to my childhood when I'm sure that my mother would have read this story to me as well, but I was always a reader. So I consumed it and was very curious about where did those bong trees go? I want to go there. And of course, in those days, I had no idea what a bloody bong was. And I probably wouldn't have gone there if I had made that association.
That's why I had to Google it.
And what came up? Did anything come up, Tanya?
Yeah, they showed the trees, the bong trees, actually trees
Oh,
come, but it
oh,
also referred back to the book.
so they are a real tree then, Tanya.
Well, apparently, in my 2 minutes of research, yes.
And what do you think the bong tree might represent in the poem? Anyone got thoughts about what the
Strength.
strength?
Hang on. Don't type in bong free. Stuff comes up you don't want to see. So, um, it's the pictures that were coming up were very stoic trees, very not quite an oak, but more straight up and down, strong trees.
Love that.
I was sort of imagining that they had exotic fruit or something on them, that you were going to a
Yeah.
place that, yeah.
That's
Well,
given
I
what
found a
Melody
bong tree Oh,
Oops.
sorry.
Yes. No, sorry, Johnny, go.
I found a different bong tree. What's a bong tree? It's north of Phoebe umbelliflora. It's an evergreen tropical tree in the family Leraceae. And its common name is, in English, is the bong tree. It's called the yang bong tree in Thai. So it sounds like it's Southeast Asian or something. Let's find out.
I read that it was a laurel, sort of a laurel tree. That
Yeah,
when I was a kid,
it
I
was
thought bong as in the sound, like if you go bong,
Ah,
Oh, I
like
like
on a
that.
bell. So I was thinking that it would be all musical.
When I think of the bong tree, I think of trees being, their roots going down into the earth and being really grounded and solid.
mm.
And so if they're journeying to the land of the bong trees, are they wanting a relationship that's really grounded and solid?
Mm.
This says the bark from the bong tree contains gum, a useful sticking agent,
Oh,
and aromatic oils. Pulverized bark is used to make incense sticks for temples in South and Southeast Asia. It's also an ingredient in mosquito coils and glue for carton and particle board.
interesting.
And when mixed with soil, the bark can be molded into statues and household items.
There you
Something
go.
for everyone.
Mm. And
Literally.
yes, perhaps symbolic of a relationship that absolutely sticks together and stands the test of time. Yeah.
I thought immediately when I read gum, thought, wow, it's fascinating. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, I didn't do as much research about this as I usually do.
Yeah, yeah, but that's okay, because this was really about how do you see it? Yeah, and Khadine shared some things with me on Norfolk Island that absolutely blew me away that I had never thought of.
What did I share? I don't even remember.
Oh gosh, you didn't even drink it all when you were there, so it was about inclusion and acceptance and racism. Like you have an owl and a pussycat representing two different types of people that probably never should be together, but they got together and they made it work. And it just made so much sense to me. It actually blew me away, Khadine. I went, wow, that's like really deep. That's going beneath the subtext of this even. That's really insightful, cathartic. You've identified that there's a sense of universalisation, and I knew then that we would have to have this at Bibliotherapeutic Book Club.
I just realised they were into recycling as well.
Oh,
Yes, with the ring.
With the
Ring.
ring.
Oh, yeah. That brings it back to environment again. Yeah, they weren't looking for something new and shiny.
No, they were just a ring from the pig, which is pretty lowly in or highly in the animals, depending on your
But
take.
in popular culture, I think many of us would think of a pig in an adult conversation associated with Animal Farm. And what's the other one? Oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of it now. Oh, sorry. I couldn't hear.
I always think about Babe when I think
Oh,
about
Babe. Yeah.
I think of pigs as being really highly intelligent.
Yeah.
Charlotte's Web. That's got a pig in it too.
Yeah, but that they had a ring through the nose of the pig shows the human dominance too,
Yeah.
though, that's
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah.
And they're kind of freeing the pig from his ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Khadine, what do you know about the life of the author?
I don't actually.
And I don't know a lot about him either, except I do know that he was one of 21 children.
Wow.
And he was the youngest surviving. And I think the family were middle class. So there was money to probably buy Quince Pace or something like that. But things went sour for the family, and he was raised by one of the older children. She was around about 21 years older than him. And her and he, as a young child, had to leave home. They were exiled because the family had fallen on hard times. So it's interesting that Anne-Marie has just raised the sustainability and the recycling. I wonder if that was what was in the poet's head when he wrote this, because they'd had to recycle because they had fallen on hard times. And they went to Italy. He and his older sister went to Italy and they lived in Italy. So for me, and I did English literature as an undergraduate, so I know something about his life from those undergraduate years. But adventure and the different cultures, and I wondered if that influenced the way he wrote the marriage of the pussycat and the owl. Don't know. And just like we've all been triggered according to different parts of our own childhood with what spoke to us in this poem, I'm sure that he wrote it being triggered by different parts of his childhood. And he also had the lived experience of depression, fairly major depression from his childhood and being sent away and being raised by his sister. So he wrote this poem, and Khadine, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you've done research, but my understanding is that he wrote this poem for the children of a friend.
Yeah, the one that invented the spoon.
Oh, so for Runcie, okay, okay, yeah. And he was a musician, so he wanted to put everything to music, and he wanted people to dance. He wanted people to be he wanted people to be happy because he was at times so very depressed himself. Yeah, but I love the poem. It doesn't spark any depression in me, just as I said before, joy and adventure.
So, does anybody have any other thoughts about what this poem might be saying about unconventional relationships or relationships in general?
Well, I was going to say before, it's like some of the relationships that we work with, because we work across genders in relationships. So we work with transgender and cisgender relationships, and transgender relationships, and gay relationships, and yeah.
Yes, because in the poem, the owl and the pussycat, it's not clear what genders they are, is it?
Correct. Yeah.
There could be any.
Edward Lear also had epilepsy.
Edward Lear did, yes. And that's why they were sent away. He was an embarrassment to the family. Yes. I remember now. So thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
What was that? I missed that.
Edward Lear, it says that when he was 5, he had his first epileptic fit.
Oh, okay.
That he lived to be 75, but he always had delicate health, poor eyesight, and suffered from chronic respiratory problems.
Wow.
So he wasn't too well. That's probably the reason why he was sent away to Italy, because Italy had a better climate.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to be sent to Italy.
Yeah.
Can I come?
I'd like to be sent to Italy.
Well, I'm going to Rome next September. You're welcome to come.
Lots of good food there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Quince paste until the cows come home. or the pigs or the pussycats. Or the owls.
Have you got to try quince melody?
Oh, Khadine, you can get quince at Coles now, so it's not that exotic anymore.
I know, but it doesn't mean you've tried it.
I have. Yeah.
How did it go?
That's good. Especially with good cheese.
You ever have
I agree.
Yeah, the quince paste.
Yeah. I don't really like the quinces. like
I think you have to cook them
fruit.
a long time, watching Maggie Beer. She teaches
Or
you
you can just buy Maggie Beer's quince paste at Coles.
Yeah.
You just
that's
cut
true.
that middle bit out. Yeah.
I think that's a great plan.
I'm all for outsourcing to Auntie Maggie.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about how the poem relates to unconventional love or relationships in general?
I was wondering about they took some honey and plenty of money
Mm.
because maybe I'm thinking about this now as a big person because before I was just loving that there was going to be unlimited supply of honey. I didn't even think about money, but now I'm thinking like money and honey, could that have been used for exchange? Like, in colonizing different countries, the
Mm.
colonizers have, tried to get stuff for shells and, whatever. So they had the money of their system and then the honey that they could have used to sweeten a
Yeah.
deal with the pig or with whoever else they were going to be meeting up and getting to do things for them.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. Love that insight. That's amazing.
Yeah, and they did buy the ring off the pig.
Yeah.
So, they were starting off there.
Mm.
Yeah.
So did
And
the
what
pig get shafted or was it a good deal?
I'm thinking he might have
Mm.
got shafted. They had
You
plenty
never
of
know.
money. And what did
Yeah.
they pay him?
1 shilling.
Yeah.
But at that time, was it a lot of money in 1872, 1 shilling?
Could have been.
But it was less than the £5 note that they also.
aha,
Ah,
today, yes, yeah, yep. So they kept the £5 note to themselves. Maybe that was maternity payment, who knows?
yeah. But they had to, they felt they need to actually get married was interesting. They couldn't just go away and live together. They actually needed to get married.
Would that have been a thing though in 100 years ago, Anne Marie? Would that have been acceptable?
Well, getting married.
Yeah, they're not getting married.
Get
Like, would
married.
have that
No,
been a
it
thing?
probably wouldn't have been, but I suppose
Hmm.
it shows they're a bit of conformists,
Hmm.
But to run away
despite the
together,
relationship.
Hmm.
at that period wouldn't have been,
Oh, yeah,
that would
yeah.
have been seen as a, major transgression or something that,
Hmm.
because, before marriage.
And a lot
Hmm.
of people weren't allowed, if we look at Australia,
Mm.
Aboriginal people weren't necessarily allowed to marry non-Aboriginal people. There were restrictions around that.
Mm.
Maybe they had to escape to another country to be able to get married.
And if you're same sex in Australia up until very recently, you weren't allowed to get married either.
That's correct.
Yeah.
We're very behind in that.
Hmm.
You had to get permission to get married sometimes on the missions. Like you
Yeah.
had to get married. And I know in Yarrabah, there were people who were not allowed to marry because the person who was in charge of Yarrabah at the time had an idea about how he wanted, I don't know how to put this, but it was about genetics, and he was trying to stop people who were dark from being with people who were light, and kind of keep certain people certain kind of shades and connections and stuff. It was really, what's that called?
Eugenics?
Eugenics, yeah, that's what it was. It's eugenics.
There's also, though, people were forced to marry people who were not right by their culture to
Hmm.
marry. And there's some relationships in town here that people are still shunned because they're kids of a forced relationship from years ago, yeah.
So interesting.
Mm.
Yes.
What a reflection of our history.
Yeah, yeah. And when we talk about things or we write things, we can only do it in the way that we've been schooled, the things that have influenced us. So just picking up on the previous conversation about the money, he was living in Italy when he wrote this, and they didn't use pounds, but it was still wrapped up in a £5 note.
Hmm.
So that's interesting too. And he's wanting to clearly escape. And the other comment that I've got is the boat and the ocean, which features very heavily throughout this poem. And from a psychoanalytic point of view, water is emotion. So they were sitting on top of emotion for a good part of the poem.
That's right.
But yeah, very interesting about what was going on in his life and the times, as you have all picked on, like what was going on for this relationship in that particular era.
And I wonder also too, like there's emotion, like you say,
Yeah.
but also in a boat there is motion.
Ah,
So you're moving on and moving forward and moving away.
that is so Jungian. I love it. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, and you have like the calm waters, and then you have the rough waters, and then the
Mm.
super rough waters.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, fantastic. This is a very, very deep and rich poem. And Khadine, I am so grateful to you for having had that conversation with me on Norfolk Island that is also surrounded by water.
Ah.
How bizarre is that?
That's just perfect, really.
Absolutely perfect.
I'm wondering if anyone can relate this poem to any other experiences in their life. How would you relate this poem to any other experiences in life? For myself, I relate it to being a teenager and 17, and I was living with my mum for the first time in years, but she became unwell very quickly, and I'd started seeing this guy, and we got together very quickly as a way to survive. That's one of the ways, I guess, in my adult life that I can relate to the poem. And you know, we both got together not because we had things in common, but for us at that time, it just allowed each of us to survive. And so I can relate to it from that perspective. And then on the opposite end, I can relate to the adventurous part of me that just would love to have someone that would like to go on adventures with me through many waters and spend time in nature.
I was thinking too, like, it's the relationship stuff and how that could possibly relate to, I know, you and your work or whatever as well, that like it may not actually be a person and you sail away with them and yeah,
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 absolutely.
yeah. So yeah, and just yeah, I suppose so much that you're married to it more or less.
Yeah, can you relate to that?
At times, yeah, yes, yes.
A nice metaphor there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good insight.
And I wonder too, like the sailed away, and you going back to talking about emotion, is like you can get carried away with emotion. And my first marriage, I got married after he asked me, and then I thought straight away, oh, probably not, but it was too late because everything was set in motion. I didn't want to disappoint anyone. So I kind of got carried away,
Yeah.
which was like dumbass. But it didn't occur to me that I could get out of it. I felt like made your bed and you got to lie in it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I sailed away and got stuck in that bloody boat for, 12 years.
And wasn't that common? Isn't that common for women to be told? I don't know that males have been told that so much. You've made your bed and now you've got to lie in it. I remember my grandmother.
Arranged marriage or anything. I was 30. It wasn't like I was a child bride. I just had this
Doesn't matter.
idea in my head that that's what you had to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
But it is something that is sort of instilled in us that, yeah, that accepting the consequences, I suppose, and that's just we don't fight against it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it is so very important for all of us to be using literature with, I think, all of us, every single one of us are working with therapeutically with other people, except for Jade, who supports therapists. But it's so very important to use literature and popular culture to help people understand where they're coming from and why they think what they think. So if we can delve beneath the surface, look beyond the written word and at everything that's behind it, at the identification, at the catharsis, at the insight, at the universalisation, the written word can have a huge impact on people so that they can find themselves in the written word rather than losing themselves and being controlled by the written word. And like Melody said, being told that, you know, when you're a woman, you just have to get married and that's it, don't upset anybody. Yeah. Yep, and we don't have to, but we just accept it as given. So there's actually a theorist called Antonio Gramsci, and he talks about the difference between common sense and good sense. So every class has a common sense, but beneath that common sense, when you look deeper, is the good sense of our own culture and our own class. And he encourages everybody to dig to find your good sense, what works for you. Now, everybody, we need to wrap this up. And unfortunately, this actually is the last bibliotherapeutic book club, possibly of the year, but certainly until October when I hand my PhD thesis in. And my PhD is actually in psychoeducation and bibliotherapy, but I now need to be laser focused with nothing else on my plate. So we're hanging 10 until I'm back. As soon as I hand this bugger in, I give birth and how painful it is, and the water hasn't broken yet. But as soon as this is birthed, I will be back.
It's been lovely sharing the Owl and the Pussycat with you all and hearing your insights. And remember, if you want the copy of the images I've created, you're welcome to email me and I'll send them to you for you to download and print off yourselves.
Khadine,
Thank you.
And the conversation that we had changed my thinking, and I am so grateful to you for that. And there's a message from Melanie, who is crook at the moment, so she hasn't been able to join in, but she's just saying thank you to everybody. And thank you, Melanie, for getting out of your sick bed. And I tell you, with that stuff that I told you, that honey drink, you know, the lemon drink that I shared with you online, you should drink more of that as a preventative. And a little bit of vodka. Yeah. But thank you, Khadine. Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm so glad that you had something so positive in a book in your childhood.
It was like my best friend for a while there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yep. So I know that Anne Marie is doing her PhD and she's studying the adverse childhood ACE experiences. Got it. Adverse childhood experiences. How wonderful.
And positive childhood experiences.
Yes, of course, not just the bad shit. Yeah, also the good shit.
No. Early childhood stuff.
Yeah. But how interesting for Anne Marie to know that this book was so pivotal in your childhood and it's led to your post-traumatic growth.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
It led to a lot of growth, you know, whether it was the school asking me to record it so that it could be kept in the library. Like that meant a lot to me since I was put in a class that was dumbed down as such for them to do that.
Yep. Wow. All right. Thank you, everybody. This will go on to, thank you, Khadine and Megan and everyone. Oh, thank you, Melody. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And next time I eat quince paste, I promise I will think of you.
Yeah, next time I see you, we'll have to do the cheese and the quince paste.
Yeah, I'm rather partial to it. Yeah. A little bit of caviar, some olives. Yeah. If anybody
With
wants
our runtable spoon.
Yeah.
Yes.
If
I
anybody
want one of those
comes
now.
to Rome next September to eat quince paste and cheese with me,
Mm.
you can come. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
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 Thank you, everyone. Good luck, Megan.